Hello, welcome to another weekly video. Just in case this is your first time watching, I'm just going to give you a brief description of what my videos are like. It's usually things that I would like to hear being in church. I've been to a lot of churches and I just don't feel like the content that I hear is helpful. So I'm just trying to put some videos out there where I feel like um, the information is something I would like to hear if I were in a church. So anyway, today I'm going to be talking about nightmares. I've had nightmares for about 30 years, and for a long time, I just didn't really understand how being a Christian goes along with having nightmares. It felt like opposing ideas. I just didn't really understand it. Honestly, I still struggle with it, but I'm definitely coming to a point where I just kind of accept it. I think part of moving forward in a healing journey, whether you're a Christian or not, it it really takes accepting some of the difficult things that you see in yourself, to let go and move forward. I say move forward, to let go and have something go away from you, or stop. For example, if you're having nightmares, you have to accept that that's a part of your journey, before the nightmares go away. So I'll try to talk a little bit about what I went through that caused the nightmares. I've been through a lot of difficult things, specifically verbal and physical abuse from my mother. It was just some deep emotional wounds, from being screamed at. And, you know, sometimes I wonder if maybe I was just a really sensitive person growing up. But to be fair, my mother was just really an angry person and hateful. And, um, and I wish I could just say it was just verbal and physical abuse, and there were good times, to kind of make the bad times not so bad, but there just weren't any good times. She never knew how to love. I don't know if you've heard people talk about the previous generation, but um, I've heard a lot of people um, around my age, which is like 37, talk about how their parents just never said they loved them. Well, honestly, I've heard people from the previous generation talk about their parents never said they loved them. They weren't loving. I'd never really had much physical contact with my mother. She was just either mean or meaner. That's how I felt. She just didn't hug you. She acted like she didn't even want to be in the room with you. Every little question or thing you asked of her, she was just annoyed by. I mean, when I look back, it felt like she didn't want to have children. But I don't think that she would claim that. It's just what her actions told me. So I just remember feeling very lonely, even outside of the abuse. But the abuse specifically was extra harsh because there wasn't any love to counter it. Sometimes that can make, I hate to say, it can make abuse better if you have some kind of love to counter it. But that is how I view life, my own life. It definitely made abuse like 5 times, 10 times worse, because there was never any love to counter it outside of the abuse. It felt like it was just always some kind of bad feeling towards me. Anyway, I just try to paint the picture to kind of help you understand the depth of the pain that I would go through. Um, that that I guess would leave these mental scars. That's the only way I know how to put it. You know, that's kind of how I look at nightmares. The things that tend to come up in a nightmare I have are a lot of times it is things that happened with family. I was also molested by my sister, so sometimes that'll come up, but most often it's some kind of exchange between me and my mother, and um, I'm usually in the position of feeling helpless. I think that's a common theme. Um, but sometimes I'll have memories of things outside of that. But it's usually some deep thing that's hard to forget, an emotional scar. It'll come back up in a nightmare, and I mean I've had a lot of like questions about um, I guess what Christianity is. I've I've tried to talk to people about the problems that I have specifically with trauma. Like I've been to church camps and churches, and I've had a lot of exposure into, I guess, Christian churches and Christian religious people. I've talked to a lot of people in that area, and a lot of people made me feel like I wasn't a Christian because I had some of the things that go along with trauma. You know, depression, probably any kind of diagnosis, mental illness. These are things that you just well, other people in the church would talk about how you just can't have these problems if you're a Christian, and I mean, I personally don't feel that way. I don't know where people are coming from when they say those kind of things. It gave me a lot of confusion though, especially when I've seen some examples of what these people are talking about, that the people that don't have nightmares, the people that don't have the struggles that I do, um, they do tend to look at me like there's something wrong with me. So um, I guess it's just been really hard because like it feels like you're an outsider. It feels like you don't belong. You definitely can't talk to anybody. One time, I tried to talk to a counselor at a church camp, and I was telling her what I was dealing with, and she was like, "Are you sure you're saved?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, I think so." But she was like, "Well, let's just go through the sinner's prayer again, just in case." And so we went through the sinner's prayer, and and she just felt like that was my problem, you know, that I just wasn't a Christian, and that's kind of where we left things. But I really just want to help you understand that these are actually normal things to go through as a Christian. Um, like you're not immune to pain and trauma, and you can have all kinds of problems. The point is that God can still heal the problems. I think that's the focus, but you know, it takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself. Um, you know, I never thought that I would have nightmares this long. You know, with the amount of fear and pain that I went through, it made sense to me. Um, I guess when I was living at home, it was, I mean, to me, it made perfect sense because my mother, who was the threat, was always there, and I was always worried about what was the next thing that was going to happen. But I found that when I left home, I didn't just stop having the problems that I had when I was at home. You know, I had no idea how long it would take to change the problems that I had picked up while I was at home, to get rid of those problems. So I was gonna try to do a different video um, on what kind of problems you can have as a Christian. I may still do that, but um, I just wanted to at least touch on that, like that if you have nightmares, that doesn't really mean anything's wrong with you. It just means that you've got something specifically to heal from. You know, still probably being played out in your mind. Sometimes it can be, you just have too much contact with the um, the person that hurt you, and you need to separate from that. I actually I left home about 7 years ago, but I didn't completely disconnect from my mother till I think this year. So it didn't really surprise me that I was still having nightmares. Every time I would see her, it was a huge setback. Talking to her, hearing anything about her, it was a huge setback. And there was a lot of things I had to learn. I had to learn um, how she was using my family members against me and stuff like that. Again, I think I've talked about how she was a narcissist. So um, if you are familiar with that, you kind of understand how they operate. So she would use family members against me and stuff, and it really did take about 6 years to learn how to, I guess, disconnect completely. There were parts of me that were just having a really hard time. For example, she was using my dad to communicate with me, and I couldn't bring myself to stop talking to my dad because he had always supported me and loved me, but he was a huge enabler. Um, so I tried to find a way to group message him and my mother, but that just wouldn't work either. I just couldn't have any communication with her because it was too bad on my mental health. Um, so this is the first year I've actually been completely not talking to her, and I don't really expect the nightmares to go away for at least a period of time after I stopped talking to her. I think that's normal for anybody if they're having to interact with the person that hurt them. But anyway, I guess my focus was really more on the nightmares, and I just want to encourage you if you are going through that. Like I do understand what that's like, and I've been in groups where people will talk about the nightmares that they have, and when do they stop? I know it's probably not very encouraging, but um, you kind of have to accept them and just um, get used to them before they stop. I know that sounds weird, but that's kind of what my experience has been. I've had to just kind of let it stop bothering me, and just treat it like it's any other dream. That's the only way the nightmares have even improved. And I can't say that they've gotten better, but they're not gone completely. Um, Whatever I'm having a hard time, they definitely come back up. So you may experience that, but you just kind of have to find a way to build a tolerance up to it. That's probably the best way I would describe it. After you have them for so long, I mean, you do kind of build up a tolerance. It just becomes a second nature thing, and I know it probably doesn't sound that encouraging, and you know nobody wants to have to endure through it, but sometimes you have to. So um, that's probably the best advice I can give you about it, um, and just know that you're not the only one. But once you take the time to really um, get used to them and build up a tolerance to them, you'll notice that they just aren't as bad anymore. Um, and and I hate to sound cliche, but if Satan realizes that you're not vulnerable to something anymore, he will stop attacking that way. But it can take years. I mean, like I said, I've been through it for um, about 30 years, and I'm still dealing with it. So anyway, I'm going to try to wrap this up, and I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions for me, just leave it in the comments, and I hope you have a good day.